If you're looking to plan a simple, relaxing vacation, then you've probably seen the heated debate online between cruises and all-inclusives. And as someone who has spent months of my life at both options over the past few years across multiple brands all over the world, I definitely have some hot takes on this debate myself. So let's break down everything you need to know before you book that next trip, including the pros and cons of each, which is best for different types of travelers, and of course, cost considerations, including which one will give you not only a better value on your money, but how you could book both using miles and points, saving yourself thousands of dollars. Let's start with cruises, and I think it goes without saying that your specific experience can vary drastically depending on which cruise line you go with. But I've personally cruised with multiple brands, I paid cash for some, I've used points for others, and in general today, I'm talking about modern, large cruise ships that your average family would book for a nice vacation. So we're gonna leave that private yacht charter out of today's discussion. The most obvious benefit of these floating cities is that you can visit multiple destinations in one trip without having to constantly pack and unpack and worry about getting from place to place. You fall asleep in one place and the next morning you open the curtains and you're somewhere completely new. And personally, I love that aspect of cruising. And that's especially true if you're just looking to get a taste of different places in the Caribbean or Mediterranean. But I also know that for a lot of travelers, the actual cruise ship itself is the destination, with many offering Broadway level entertainment these days, casinos, comedy clubs, water parks, spas, and endless bars and buffets. Personally, I'm more looking to float from one cool destination to the next, but if you're into the cruise life itself, then I love that for you. And if you're traveling with a group, or maybe you're an older traveler, then you won't find an easier way to see multiple places than a floating hotel. That being said, cruising is not for everyone, and it is far from perfect. Again, every cruise line is different, but what is often advertised as all-inclusive may come with extra expenses for specialty drinks and dining, Wi-Fi, excursions, and gratuities, and all of that can really start to add up. You also only get one day at each port in most cases, not to mention the fact that a cruise ship of thousands of people being dropped on a tiny island can be chaotic in some situations. There's a million smaller things to consider, like whether or not you get seasick, but I think that's enough about cruises for now. Let's move on to that all-inclusive experience. So the obvious difference right out of the gate is that at an all-inclusive, you're gonna pick one spot and for the most part, stay there for the entire trip. And if you're just looking to relax on the beach for a few days, then this is gonna be the obvious choice. I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but it really can't be overstated that every resort experience is gonna be a little bit different, even within the same brand. But generally speaking, with major brands like Hilton, Hyatt, and Marriott, when you see all-inclusive, they really mean all-inclusive. And you could literally go a week without even touching your wallet because the food, drinks, room service, Wi-Fi, activities, and even tips are usually included in the price of your room. Now, an extra tip here and there never hurts, and you of course have anomalies like off-property excursions that could cost extra, but in my experience, you won't feel like you're being nickel and dimed at a true all-inclusive, and in general, it's just gonna be a more chill vibe, making this ideal for couples, families, or really anyone who's just looking to unplug and chill without having to worry about any logistics. That being said, depending on the type of traveler you are, those benefits could also be viewed as cons. If you're an active traveler who's looking to see different places, then you'll probably get bored just sitting at the same resort day after day. So before we get into the cost consideration and how you can book both using points, I think that the most important question to ask yourself is, what kind of trip do you even want? All right, so we've covered the basics of each, but now for the fun part, let's talk money, or points. Generally speaking, you can expect cruises to be cheaper up front. You might see some crazy deals like 7-night sailings for a couple $100, but like we said earlier, it's really important to remember that that may not include specialty drinks, excursions will be extra, usable Wi-Fi is gonna cost more, and those fees can really start to add up. All-inclusives, on the other hand, may have a higher price up front, but if you'd rather budget for everything ahead of time and just leave your wallet behind, then an all-inclusive is probably the better option. But if you're like me and you're not looking to spend cash on either option, then the good news is that you can actually book both all-inclusives and cruises using points. And I've personally done both all over the world, so let me show you how this works. Booking all-inclusives with points is a bit more straightforward, with Hyatt now being the world's largest all-inclusive operator, with popular brands like Secrets, Breathless, and their premium Ziva and Zilara all-inclusive resorts. Hyatt actually has a separate fixed award chart just for their all-inclusive properties, with Category A resorts starting at just 12,000 points per off-peak night, which is pretty wild. These prices can get out of hand pretty quickly though, with Category F going up to 58,000 points per night, but in my experience, if you just want to sit on the beach with decent enough food and drinks, then Category B seems to be the sweet spot. And we've got several videos talking about this more in depth that you can check out down in the description. Pretty much every major brand though offers all-inclusive properties in some format, like Marriott's Autograph Collection, IHG's Iberostar, and a number of Hilton all-inclusives across different brands. These all use dynamic pricing, which is oftentimes a bit more expensive than Hyatt's fixed award chart, but you can still snag some pretty great deals using things like free night awards and 4th or 5th night free benefits. Now, booking cruises with points on the other hand is a bit more complicated. Most travel portals from major card providers will let you book cruises directly through their travel portals, but you're usually only going to get about 1 cent per point, which isn't great compared to the 2 to 3 cents per point you could get from a Hyatt all-inclusive. That being said, there are some lesser known loopholes, like using the Virgin Red program, where you can actually book a number of Virgin Voyage cruises using points at a pretty decent redemption value, closer to 2 cents per point, especially if you put Virgin Atlantic's frequent transfer bonuses to good use. Virgin Voyages is actually my personal favorite cruise line by far, and the fact that you can also book these using points at a decent redemption value is just a nice bonus. Now, I'll warn you that the process is a little more complicated, and we actually have an entire video explaining how this all works, but essentially you transfer your points from any major card provider to your Virgin Atlantic account, and by having your Virgin Red account linked, you can then book some pretty expensive cruises for completely free. Aaron and I did this last year with a cruise in the Mediterranean, and we actually just got back from an 11-night cruise in the Caribbean that could be booked for 357,000 points, which I realize sounds insane, but considering this was an 11-night cruise, it actually shakes out to just 32,000 points per night, which falls right in line with those mid-tier all-inclusives from Hyatt. And that's not even including the 30 to 40% transfer bonuses that frequently pop up with Virgin Atlantic, which means I really only used 23,000 transferable points per night at a redemption value of 1.9 cents per point. So that leaves us with the huge remaining question, which is better, a cruise or an all-inclusive? Well, setting the cost and point considerations aside for now, I think the most important question to ask yourself is, again, what type of trip do you want? If you want to fly to one place and sit on the beach, then book an all-inclusive. If you want to jump around from one location to the next, then book a cruise. It's really that simple. Personally, and I expect to be absolutely torched in the comment section for this, after about 2 days, I get so bored at all-inclusives, and at my age, I would much rather be on the go, moving from one cool place to the next, but that's just my opinion. In terms of miles and points, you obviously have way more choices with all-inclusives, but again, Virgin Voyages is my favorite cruise line by far, and the fact that you can also book this with points at a decent redemption value is just the cherry on top. So you can learn more about that whole redemption process in this video, or how we booked multiple all-inclusives in Jamaica using points in this video. But let me know what you think of this heated debate down in the comment section and which option you prefer. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.